Marcus Johnson sat quietly in the back of the courtroom. His hands held his wooden cane tightly. At 62 years old, his body showed the signs of his 20 years in the military. He had served in Desert Storm twice and once in Afghanistan. These wars left him with a bad back and pain that made standing very hard most days. But today, he had to be here. His grandson Kevin needed him. The courtroom was busy. Lawyers were looking through papers. Court officers were showing people where to sit. Judge William Harrison was in charge of everything with a strict look on his face. Marcus watched as guards brought in his grandson Kevin. Kevin wore an orange jail outfit that looked too big on him. At only 19 years old, Kevin was in trouble for something Marcus knew he did not do. "Everyone stand for Judge Harrison," the court officer called out. The room filled with noise as everyone stood up. Everyone except Marcus. His damaged body would not let him stand. He tried to push himself up using his cane, but pain shot through his back like a bolt of lightning. Judge Harrison looked around the room and saw Marcus still sitting. His eyes narrowed. "Sir," I said, "everyone stand. You will show respect in my courtroom." Marcus felt his face get hot with shame. "I am sorry, Your Honor. No excuses. In this courtroom, we follow rules." "Stand up," the judge ordered. His voice was loud in the big room. Kevin turned around and looked at his grandfather. His eyes were wide with worry. "Grandpa," he whispered. The courtroom went completely quiet. Everyone was looking at Marcus, who sat frozen in his seat. The judge's order hung in the air. Marcus Johnson had faced enemy gunfire without fear, but this moment of public shame hurt worse than any wound. With shaking hands, Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and took out his old military ID card. "Your Honor," he said, his voice steady even though his heart was racing, "I served this country for 20 years. I earned 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star. I would stand if I could." The judge's face did not change. "I note your service, Mr. Johnson, but in my courtroom." "Please let me finish," Marcus said, cutting off the judge. This was something he would never have done during his military days. "This cane is not for show. My back was hurt when our truck hit a bomb. 3 of my friends died that day. I came home, but parts of me stayed there." People in the courtroom started to whisper to each other. Judge Harrison's strict face changed a little. "I cannot stand for you today, Judge," Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. "But I have stood for this country when it mattered most. I have stood in places where people wanted to kill me because of this uniform. I have stood in the rain at the funerals of my friends who did not make it home." The judge's face softened. The courtroom stayed completely silent. Everyone was listening to Marcus's words. "I am here today because my grandson needs someone to stand for him when he cannot stand for himself. He is a good kid who made a mistake by being in the wrong place with the wrong people. He did not do this crime." Marcus's voice broke a little. "I may not be able to stand up in your courtroom, but I am standing for him in every way that matters. And I will keep standing for him long after we leave this place." The silence that followed was deep. Judge Harrison took off his glasses and rubbed his nose. When he looked up, his eyes met Marcus's with new understanding. This moment would change everything in the courtroom, but no one knew it yet. "Mr. Johnson," the judge said finally, his voice completely changed, "this court respects your service and your sacrifice. Please, stay seated." Then the judge did something that shocked everyone in the courtroom. He stood up from his big chair, stepped down from the high bench, and walked straight to Marcus. He held out his hand. "On behalf of this court, I apologize," Judge Harrison said, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear, "and I thank you for your service." Marcus took the judge's hand. His eyes filled with tears that did not fall. The courtroom burst into applause. Lawyers, court officers, and even the prosecutor all stood up. They were not standing for the judge now. They were standing for Marcus Johnson. The judge walked back to his bench and called for quiet. "Now about the case of Kevin Johnson. I have looked at the evidence, and I find it not enough. He looked at the prosecutor. The store video clearly shows the defendant was not there during the time of the crime. Case dismissed. Kevin's face lit up with surprise and joy. The public defender patted him on the back as the judge kept talking. Mr. Kevin Johnson, your grandfather has taught us all something important today. About respect, about sacrifice, and about standing up for what is right, even when you cannot stand it all. Do not waste this second chance. As Kevin hugged his grandfather, people in the courtroom whispered about what they had seen. Judge Harrison, known for being very strict about rules, had not only said sorry but had shown a kindness few had seen before. An older woman in the front row wiped tears from her eyes. She had come for her own case, but found herself moved by what she had witnessed. In all my years, she whispered to the man next to her, I never thought I would see a judge come down from that bench for anyone. The man nodded. That veteran just taught everyone here what real dignity looks like. The prosecutor, a young woman who had been certain of Kevin's guilt, now looked at her file with new eyes. The evidence had seemed strong at first, but after taking a second look at the store video as the judge suggested, she saw the truth. The person in the video was similar to Kevin, but clearly not him. She closed her file, feeling a mix of shame and relief that justice had been served after all. Court officers, usually stone-faced and strict, looked at Marcus with clear respect in their eyes. Many of them were veterans themselves, and they understood the sacrifice behind Marcus's words in a way civilians might not fully grasp. One officer, a young man who had served in Iraq, approached Marcus as Kevin was being processed for release. Staff Sergeant Johnson, he asked, noticing the rank on the ID card Marcus still held. Marcus looked up. Yes, that was me, a long time ago. Sergeant First Class Rivera, sir, 101st Airborne. The officer stood straight, almost at attention. I just wanted to say, what you did today, that took more courage than most firefights I've been in. Marcus smiled. Sometimes the hardest battles are fought right here at home. Son. Rivera nodded. My brother is coming home next month, injured in Afghanistan. I was worried about how people would treat him. But after seeing this today, maybe things are changing. As they talked, Judge Harrison watched from his chamber's doorway. His grandfather had been a Buffalo soldier in World War II, coming home to a country that still would not serve him at certain lunch counters. The judge had grown up hearing those stories, which had pushed him toward a career in law. Today, he felt like he had finally honored his grandfather's memory in a way that mattered. The courtroom slowly emptied, but the impact of what happened there would last much longer than this one day. Later that day, as Marcus and Kevin walked slowly out of the courthouse into the bright sunshine, a small crowd had gathered. News traveled fast in their small town. People who had been in the courtroom had called friends and family. They wanted others to know about the special thing that had happened. Marcus moved carefully down the courthouse steps, leaning on his cane with one hand and holding Kevin's arm with the other. His back pain was worse after sitting on the hard courtroom bench for hours, but his heart felt lighter than it had in months. Kevin looked at his grandfather with new eyes. He had always known his grandpa was a veteran, but today he had seen a side of him that was both strong and gentle at the same time. Grandpa, Kevin said quietly as they reached the bottom of the steps, thank you for being there today, for standing up for me when no one else would. Marcus smiled. Family stands for family, son. That is what we do. A woman with a small notebook and a camera walked up to them. She wore a press badge that said, Local News. Mr. Johnson, she said, my name is Sarah Williams from the County Times. People are talking about what happened in court today. Would you mind sharing your story with our readers? Marcus looked at Kevin, now free, and with his whole life ahead of him, and smiled. My story. It is the same as many veterans. We serve because we believed in something bigger than ourselves. And sometimes, the battles we fight when we come home are harder than the ones we fought overseas. Sarah wrote quickly in her notebook. Judge Harrison has a reputation for being very strict about rules. Were you surprised by how he responded to you? Marcus thought for a moment. When you have seen the things I have seen, very little surprises you anymore. But yes, I was surprised that he listened. Many people see the cane and the gray hair and think they know everything about me. The judge took the time to hear me. That is rare these days. As they talked, more people gathered around. Some were from the courtroom. Others had just heard bits of the story and wanted to know more. An older man in a Vietnam veteran hat pushed through the crowd and stood in front of Marcus. "Marines?" he asked, looking at Marcus. "Army. 10th Mountain Division," Marcus answered. The man nodded and held out his hand. "Thank you, brother, for all of it." The two men shook hands, understanding passing between them that no one else in the crowd could fully grasp. Kevin watched this exchange with interest. He had spent the last few years hanging out with the wrong crowd, looking for respect in all the wrong places. But here was his grandfather, getting real respect from strangers just by being himself and standing up for what was right. Sarah continued her questions. What would you say to other veterans who might face similar situations? Marcus leaned more heavily on his cane. The day was catching up with him, and he was getting tired. But this question seemed important. I would say that our service does not end when we take off the uniform. This country needs our courage in peacetime, just as much as in war. Speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. As Marcus talked, a black car pulled up to the curb. Judge Harrison stepped out, now dressed in regular clothes instead of his black robe. The crowd went quiet as he walked toward Marcus and Kevin. The judge stopped a few feet away, seeming unsure if he would be welcome. The courtroom was his domain, but out here, he was just a man who had made a mistake and tried to fix it. Marcus nodded at him, a simple gesture that said more than words could. The judge closed the distance between them. What happened next would change not just Marcus and Kevin's lives, but the entire community around them. The small act of justice inside the courtroom was about to grow into something much bigger. Judge Harrison stood before Marcus and Kevin in the bright afternoon sun. The crowd around them went quiet, waiting to see what would happen next. "Mr. Johnson," the judge said, his voice different now without the echo of the courtroom. "I wonder if I might have a word with you in private." Marcus looked at the judge. The man seemed smaller somehow without his black robe, just a regular person with gray at his temples and worry lines on his face. "Whatever you have to say to me, you can say it here," Marcus replied. His voice was not angry, just firm. The judge nodded. "Fair enough. First, I want to apologize again for what happened in court today. There is no excuse for how I treated you." Marcus nodded but said nothing. Years in the military had taught him to listen more than he spoke. "But I did not come here just to say sorry again," the judge continued. "I came to ask for your help." This surprised Marcus. "My help? With what?" "I have been a judge for 15 years. In that time, I have seen too many young men like your grandson come through my courtroom. Some guilty, some innocent, but almost all of them without anyone to stand for them like you stood for Kevin today." The judge paused, looking around at the growing crowd. "What I am trying to say is that I would like to start a program at the courthouse, a program where veterans like you can mentor young people who are in trouble with the law." Kevin looked up in surprise. "Like a Big Brother program?" "Something like that," the judge agreed, "but with veterans who understand discipline, honor, and service. People who know what it means to stand for something important." Marcus frowned slightly. "And you want me to be part of this program?" "I want you to help me create it," Judge Harrison said, "to be its first leader." The reporter, Sarah, was writing quickly in her notebook. This was turning into a much bigger story than she had expected. "Why me?" Marcus asked. "You do not even know me." "I know enough," the judge replied. "I know you served your country for 20 years. I know you raised your daughter as a single father after your wife died. I know you took in your grandson when your daughter could not care for him. And I know that today, when it would have been easier to stay quiet, you spoke up with dignity and truth." Marcus was surprised that the judge knew so much about his family. He must have read Kevin's file carefully. This program would pay, of course, the judge added. Not much, but something to supplement your pension. Marcus leaned more heavily on his cane. The idea was interesting, but he was tired. The day had taken a lot out of him. I would need to think about it, he said finally. Of course, the judge agreed. Here is my card. My personal cell number is on the back. Call me when you decide. As the judge turned to leave, an older woman pushed through the crowd. Her face was lined with age, and her hands showed years of hard work. Judge Harrison, she called out, my grandson is in your court next week. Will this program be ready in time to help him too? The judge looked at her, then back at Marcus. That depends on Mr. Johnson, he said honestly. More people moved forward now, asking questions about the program, wondering if their own children or grandchildren might qualify. The simple moment between a judge and a veteran was growing into something that could change many lives. Marcus watched it all with a mixture of hope and doubt. Could he really make a difference for these young people? Was this the reason he had survived when so many of his friends had not? Kevin leaned close to his grandfather. You should do it, Grandpa. You helped me. You could help others too. As the sun began to set behind the courthouse, Marcus Johnson faced a new kind of battle. Not one fought with weapons, but with wisdom. Not one that would earn him medals, but that might save the next generation from the mistakes that had nearly cost his grandson his future. 3 days after the courtroom incident, Marcus sat in his small living room. Letters and phone messages had piled up from people who had heard about what happened. The local paper had put the story on the front page. A bigger newspaper from the city had called twice asking for an interview. Marcus had told them all the same thing. I need time to think. The judge's business card sat on the coffee table. Marcus had picked it up and put it down at least 20 times. The idea of the program kept running through his mind. Kevin came in from the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to his grandfather and sat down across from him. Still thinking about the judge's offer? Kevin asked. Marcus nodded. It is a big decision. I am not a young man anymore. You are not that old either, Kevin said with a smile. Marcus picked up the business card again. When I was in the service, I knew exactly what my job was. Protect my country, take care of my fellow soldiers, complete the mission. Everything was clear. And now? Kevin asked. Now I am not so sure. What do I know about helping troubled kids? Kevin laughed. You helped me, did you not? I was about as troubled as they come. It was true. When Kevin had first come to live with Marcus at age 15, he had been angry and rebellious. His mother, Marcus's only daughter, was fighting her own battles with addiction. Kevin had started skipping school, getting into fights, hanging out with a rough crowd. That was different, Marcus said. You are family. The phone rang again. Marcus ignored it. You cannot hide forever, Grandpa, Kevin said. People want to hear from you. Marcus sipped his coffee. I am not hiding. I am thinking. Kevin rolled his eyes. Well, think faster. Judge Harrison called again this morning when you were in the shower. He wants to meet tomorrow to discuss the program details. You told him I would meet. Marcus asked, surprised. I told him you were still deciding, Kevin said, but that I thought you would say yes. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Pretty sure of yourself, are you not? Kevin leaned forward. Grandpa, I know you. When have you ever walked away from someone who needed help? You took me in when Mom could not care for me. You took in that stray dog last winter. You even helped Mrs. Wilson with her groceries every week, even though your back hurts you. Marcus looked down at his coffee cup. Those are small things. Not to the people you help, Kevin replied. And this program could help a lot of people. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up the phone and dialed the number on the judge's card. Judge Harrison. This is Marcus Johnson. I think I am ready to talk about that program now. The next morning, Marcus sat across from Judge Harrison in a small coffee shop downtown. The judge had come alone, without any court staff, dressed in casual clothes. He seemed different here, more human somehow. "I am glad you called," the judge said. "I was beginning to think you might say no." "I almost did," Marcus admitted. "I am not sure I am the right person for this job." The judge stirred his coffee. "Mr. Johnson, do you know why I became a judge?" Marcus shook his head. "My grandfather was a Buffalo soldier in World War I. He fought for a country that still made him use separate water fountains when he came home. He used to tell me that true justice was not about punishing people, but about giving them a chance to be better." The judge paused. "I became a judge to create that kind of justice, but somewhere along the way I lost sight of that. I got caught up in rules and procedures, until you reminded me in that courtroom." Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand losing your way. When I came home from my last tour, I was lost for a long time. What helped you find your way back?" the judge asked. Marcus thought about it. "Having someone who needed me. My daughter was struggling. Kevin needed a home. Having a purpose bigger than myself made me get up each morning." "That is exactly what these young people need," the judge said. "Someone who sees past their mistakes to their potential. Someone who expects them to be better and helps them get there." Marcus looked out the window at the people passing by on the sidewalk. Young men and women rushing through their lives, some of them just one mistake away from ending up in Judge Harrison's courtroom. "All right," Marcus said finally. "I will help you build this program, but I have some conditions." The judge smiled. "I thought you might. Let me hear them." As the two men talked, the seeds of something important were planted, something that would grow to change not just a few lives, but the entire community. 6 weeks after the courtroom incident, the Veterans Mentorship Program held its first meeting in a small room at the county courthouse. Marcus sat at the head of a long table, looking at the faces around him. On his right was Judge Harrison, who had pulled strings and found funding to get the program started quickly. On his left was Kevin, who had insisted on being part of the program as a junior mentor. "Welcome, everyone," Marcus said. His voice was steady and clear, the same voice that had commanded troops in battle. "Thank you for coming today." Around the table sat 5 veterans of different ages and backgrounds. Some had served recently in Iraq or Afghanistan. Others, like Marcus, were from earlier wars. All had answered the call when Judge Harrison reached out. Also at the table were 6 young people, all between 16 and 20 years old. They had been chosen as the first participants in the program. Each had gotten in trouble with the law for small crimes. None had serious records yet, but they were heading down dangerous paths. "I want to be clear about what this program is and is not," Marcus continued. "This is not a punishment. You are not here because you did something wrong, although many of you did." Some of the young people looked down at the table. Others stared back defiantly. "You are here because someone saw something in you worth saving," Marcus said. "Maybe it was the judge. Maybe it was your family. Maybe, deep down, it was you." Marcus introduced each veteran mentor, telling a little about their service and experience. Then he asked each young person to introduce themselves. Most gave only their names, speaking softly or mumbling. But the last one, a tall boy named James with angry eyes, stood up. "I do not want to be here," he said flatly. "I do not need some old veterans telling me how to live my life." The room went quiet. Marcus looked at James calmly. "Fair enough," Marcus said. "No one is forcing you to stay. The door is right there." James looked surprised. He had clearly expected an argument. "You can walk out that door right now," Marcus continued. "But before you do, let me ask you something. How is your current path working out for you?" James did not answer. "You have been arrested twice. You got kicked out of school. Your mother is at her wit's end. Are you happy with where your life is going?" James still said nothing, but he sat back down. "I did not think so," Marcus said. "So maybe, just maybe, You could listen for a while before you decide this program has nothing to offer you. The meeting continued with Marcus explaining how the program would work. Each young person would be paired with a veteran mentor. They would meet once a week as a group and once a week one-on-one. The program would last 6 months. This is not about us telling you what to do, Marcus explained. This is about helping you figure out who you want to be and how to get there. After the meeting, as people were leaving, James lingered behind. He approached Marcus slowly. "Were you really in combat?" he asked, a hint of respect in his voice for the first time. "Yes," Marcus said simply. "Were you scared?" Marcus looked the boy in the eye. "Every single day." "Then why did you do it?" James asked. "Because some things are worth being scared for," Marcus replied. "Some things are bigger than fear." James thought about this. "My brother was killed in a gang shooting last year," he said suddenly. "Nobody cares. The police never even found who did it." Marcus saw the pain behind the boy's anger now. "I am sorry about your brother," he said. "And I care." James looked surprised. "You do not even know me." "I know enough," Marcus said, echoing the judge's words from weeks before. "I know you are standing at a crossroads right now, and I know which path leads to more pain." For a moment, James's tough mask slipped, and Marcus saw the scared child underneath. Then the mask was back in place. "Whatever," James said, heading for the door. But he stopped and looked back. "See you next week, I guess." After everyone had gone, Judge Harrison helped Marcus gather his papers. "That went well," the judge said. Marcus nodded. "It is a start." "That boy, James, do you think you can reach him?" Marcus thought about it. "I do not know, but I am going to try." As they walked out of the courthouse together, Marcus realized that for the first time since leaving the military, he felt truly needed again. His mission was different now, but just as important. Maybe more so. 3 months into the Veterans Mentorship Program, Marcus sat in Judge Harrison's office reviewing the progress reports. The judge looked over his reading glasses at the papers spread across his desk. 5 out of 6 staying out of trouble, Judge Harrison said. "That is better than I expected." Marcus nodded. "They are good kids underneath it all. They just needed someone to believe in them." "And James?" the judge asked. Marcus sighed. "James is still our biggest challenge." James had missed 2 meetings in the last month. He had also been caught shoplifting from a convenience store, though the owner had agreed not to press charges after Marcus spoke with him. "Should we remove him from the program?" the judge asked. Marcus shook his head firmly. "No, he is exactly who this program was created for. The ones who are hardest to reach are the ones who need us most." The judge nodded. "I trust your judgment, but the county commissioner is watching us closely. If this program is going to get permanent funding, we need success stories." "We have 5 of those already," Marcus pointed out. "Kevin is back in school. Tasha got that job at the grocery store. Michael has been clean for 2 months now." "True," the judge agreed. "But James is the one people notice. His attitude in the courthouse, the way he talks to authority figures. People are watching to see if even he can change." Marcus understood. James had become a test case for the program without even knowing it. After the meeting with the judge, Marcus drove to James's apartment building. It was in the poorest part of town, run down and covered in graffiti. Marcus knocked on the door of apartment 3B. James's mother answered. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes from working 2 jobs. "Mrs. Taylor," Marcus said politely. "Is James home?" She shook her head. "He left early this morning. Probably with those friends of his down at the abandoned factory." Marcus thanked her and drove to the old factory at the edge of town. It had closed down years ago, putting hundreds of people out of work. Now it was a hangout for local teenagers. Inside the crumbling building, Marcus found James sitting with 3 other boys. They were passing around a bottle in a paper bag. When they saw Marcus, the other boys scattered, but James stayed put. "How did you find me?" James asked, not meeting Marcus's eyes. "I was young once too," Marcus said, lowering himself carefully onto a concrete block across from James. His back pain was acting up today, making each movement difficult. "You missed our meeting yesterday," Marcus said. James shrugged. "Had better things to do." "Like drinking in an abandoned building?" Marcus asked, his voice not angry but concerned. James finally looked at him. "Why do you even care? Why not just kick me out of your program and focus on the good kids?" "Because there are no good kids or bad kids," Marcus said. "Just kids making good or bad choices." James laughed bitterly. "That is easy for you to say. You do not live in my neighborhood. You do not know what it is like." "You might be surprised," Marcus said quietly. "I grew up in a place a lot like this. My father left when I was 8. My mother worked cleaning houses until she got sick. I was headed down a bad road until a recruiter came to my school." James looked surprised. "For real?" Marcus nodded. "The military gave me discipline, purpose, a way out. I am not saying that is the path for you. But there is a path, James. There is always a path." James was quiet for a long moment. "I keep thinking about my brother," he finally said. "Why should I try to do good when he did everything right, and still ended up dead?" The pain in the boy's voice hit Marcus hard. Here was the real issue, not the attitude or the missed meetings. Your brother would want you to live, James. To really live, not just survive. For the first time since Marcus had known him, James's eyes filled with tears. He wiped them away quickly, looking around to make sure no one had seen. "I do not know how," James whispered. Marcus moved closer, ignoring the pain in his back. "That is what I am here for. That is what all of us in the program are here for. To help you figure it out." James looked down at the bottle in his hand, then suddenly threw it against the wall where it shattered. "I will come to the next meeting," he said. "I cannot promise more than that." Marcus nodded. "One day at a time. That is all any of us can do." As they walked out of the factory together, Marcus knew they had turned a corner. Not just with James, but with the program itself. Real change was beginning to happen, one young person at a time. 6 months after the Veterans Mentorship Program began, a ceremony was held in the main courtroom. The same room where Marcus had once been ordered to stand was now filled with people celebrating success. Judge Harrison stood at his bench, but today he wore a smile instead of his usual stern look. Marcus sat in the front row, Kevin beside him. The other veteran mentors and their young charges filled the seats behind them. "Today we recognize the first graduates of the Veterans Mentorship Program," the judge announced. "These young people have shown remarkable growth and commitment over the past 6 months." One by one, the judge called the young participants forward. Each received a certificate and shook hands with their mentor. Family members in the audience clapped and cheered. "Michael Davis," the judge called. Michael, who had struggled with drug use before the program, walked confidently to the front. His mother wiped tears from her eyes as he accepted his certificate. Tasha Washington. Tasha, once facing charges for fighting at school, now held a steady job and was talking about college. Kevin Johnson. Kevin stood tall as he walked to the front, no longer the scared young man in an orange jumpsuit. He shook hands with the judge, then surprised everyone by giving his grandfather a quick hug before returning to his seat. Marcus felt a surge of pride watching his grandson. Kevin had not only stayed out of trouble, but had become a leader among his peers. The judge continued calling names until only one remained: James Taylor. The courtroom went quiet. James had been the hardest case, the one most people had expected to fail. He had missed meetings, talked back to his mentor, even gotten in trouble with the law again during the program. But in the last 2 months, something had changed. James had started showing up on time. He had gone back to school. He had even helped Marcus organize a community cleanup in his neighborhood. James walked to the front of the courtroom with his head high. When he shook the judge's hand, There was a moment of mutual respect between them that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. Before we conclude today's ceremony, Judge Harrison said, "I would like to ask Marcus Johnson to say a few words." Marcus had not expected this. He slowly rose from his seat, using his cane for support. The pain in his back was severe today, but he refused to let it show as he made his way to the front. "I am not much for speeches," Marcus began. "In the military, we were taught to let our actions speak for us. But today, I want to say how proud I am of each of these young people." He looked at the graduates sitting in the front row. "When we started this program, many people doubted it would work. They looked at you and saw only your mistakes, your bad choices. They did not see what I saw." Marcus paused, making eye contact with each of the young participants. "I saw strength in you. I saw courage. I saw the same qualities that make good soldiers: loyalty, honor, commitment. You just needed a mission worthy of those qualities." James, sitting in the back of the group, lowered his head, but Marcus could see he was listening intently. "Today is not an ending. It is a beginning. The real test comes tomorrow, and the day after that, and all the days that follow. But remember this, you are not alone. We veterans made a promise to never leave a fallen comrade behind. That promise extends to all of you now." The courtroom was completely silent. Even the usual shuffling of papers and whispered conversations had stopped. "When I was ordered to stand in this very courtroom 6 months ago, I could not do it physically, but I stood in other ways. That is what I want for all of you. Stand for something. Stand for each other. Stand for yourselves." As Marcus finished speaking, something unexpected happened. James stood up from his chair. Then Kevin stood. Then Michael and Tasha. One by one, every graduate of the program rose to their feet. Then the veterans stood. Then family members. Then court staff. Even Judge Harrison stood up from his bench. The entire courtroom was standing, not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to. They were standing for Marcus, for the program, and for the idea that people can change when given the chance. Marcus looked around the room, his eyes growing moist. This was a different kind of victory than any he had known in war. A quieter triumph, but perhaps a more important one. 1 year after Marcus Johnson had been ordered to stand in court, he sat in a new office at the county courthouse. The sign on the door read Veterans Mentorship Program, Marcus Johnson, Director. The program had grown beyond what anyone had expected. What started with 6 young people and 5 veteran mentors now served over 30 at-risk youth. The county had provided permanent funding after seeing the success rates. 3 other counties had started similar programs based on their model. Marcus looked up as someone knocked on his open door. It was James Taylor, dressed in a clean button-up shirt and khaki pants. "Come in, James," Marcus said, smiling at the transformation in the young man who had once been his most difficult case. James sat down across from him. "I got the job," he said, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "The one at the community center?" Marcus asked. James nodded. "I start next week. I will be working with kids after school, helping with homework and sports." "That is perfect for you," Marcus said. He meant it. James had a natural way with younger children, a gentle patience that no one would have guessed at a year ago. "I would not have even applied if you had not pushed me," James admitted. "I just pointed the way," Marcus said. "You did the walking." They talked for a while about James's plans. He was taking classes at the community college now, thinking about becoming a teacher someday. As James was leaving, he paused at the door. "My mom wanted me to invite you to dinner on Sunday. Just a small thing to celebrate the job." Marcus was touched. "I would be honored." After James left, Judge Harrison came in. The 2 men had become friends over the past year, their initial courtroom confrontation, now a story they sometimes told to new program participants. "Good news," the judge said as he sat down. "The state legislature approved funding to expand the program statewide. They want you to help train directors for other counties." Marcus leaned back in his chair. taking in this news. That is a big job. Too big? The judge asked. Marcus smiled. No, just right. Later that afternoon, Marcus made his way slowly down the courthouse steps. His back still troubled him daily, but he had learned to manage the pain better. The work gave him purpose that made the physical discomfort easier to bear. As he reached the bottom of the steps, he noticed Kevin waiting for him by his car. Kevin had graduated from the program and was now a part-time mentor himself while attending community college. "Grandpa," Kevin called out, "do not forget we have that school presentation tomorrow." Marcus nodded. 9 a.m. sharp. I will be ready. They had been invited to speak at the local high school about the program. It was part of their outreach efforts, trying to reach young people before they got in trouble. "I was thinking," Kevin said as they drove home. "Remember when the judge ordered you to stand that day? If you had been able to stand up, none of this would have happened." Marcus thought about this. Sometimes our greatest strengths come from what seems like weakness. Sometimes our biggest opportunities come from our biggest challenges. That night, Marcus sat on his porch, looking at the stars. He thought about all the twists and turns his life had taken. From a poor neighborhood to the military. From war zones to a courtroom. From a moment of public humiliation to a program that was changing lives across the state. His phone rang. It was a mother whose son had just entered the program. Her voice was tearful as she thanked Marcus for giving her boy a second chance. After the call, Marcus closed his eyes and said a silent prayer of thanks. For his own second chances, for the opportunity to serve in a new way, for the unexpected paths that had led him here. The next morning, as Marcus prepared to speak at the high school, he looked at the young faces watching him from the auditorium seats. Some were attentive, others bored, a few obviously troubled, all of them with futures still unwritten. "My name is Marcus Johnson," he began. "1 year ago, a judge ordered me to stand in his courtroom. I could not stand then because of injuries from my military service. But today, I stand before you in ways that matter more." The students grew quiet, sensing something important in his words. "I stand for second chances. I stand for seeing the potential in every person. I stand for the idea that your past does not have to determine your future." As he spoke, Marcus saw James and Kevin at the back of the room, nodding in agreement. They were living proof of his words. "Whatever challenges you face," Marcus continued, "whatever mistakes you have made, whatever pain you carry, you can still stand for something that matters. You can still make a difference. You can still change your story."